So why is Checo Perez still here? Of course it had to be money. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bills. That's the only reason why. Of course it had to be. What are you talking about, Cameron? Why are you so naive, chap? Why didn't you realise? Of course it wasn't going to be on performance grounds. But yet and still, Checo Perez is still a going concern. Still a Red Bull Racing driver. As at the 30th of the 7th, 2024. Why? Because green is the only colour that matters. And what am I talking about here? I'm not talking about the 30 million US dollars that he brings in courtesy of sponsor Carlos Sim. Billionaire settings, multi-millionaire settings. No, oh no, not talking about that. This time I'm talking about Liberty Media. Remember, Checo Perez is the only Latin American driver currently on the grid, is he not? Or Central American, depending on your personal categorizations of. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means if Liberty Media harbour aspirations of continuing to grow in a growth market, which is of course Central America, Latin America, North America, then you need drivers who represent those demographics, do you not? Checo Perez is nothing if not that. Remember, October the 27th is due to be the Mexican Grand Prix, is it not? So what do you think that means? Do you think Liberty Media want to go to Mexico this year without a Mexican driver? Do you think anybody will show up or even buy tickets? Of course they won't. It is getting techie. And there is news reports. We're going to get to them because I think it's important that we set the table and address the context appropriately. You've heard me on a gazillion occasions over the past couple of weeks saying that Checo Perez is gonzo se acabó, kaput. His career is all but done. The overweight lady just needs to sing at this point. Why have I said that? Because he's been underperforming. I will reiterate for the avoidance of doubt, it's not just that he's been underperforming. It's the extent of the underperformance. He's nowhere near Maximilian Verstappen, his teammate who drives the same car as him. What are we doing? That's not acceptable, surely. As near as makes no difference, every single race, he doesn't even get out of Q1. Not Q2, Q1. Is that acceptable for a man driving a Red Bull? A dude who was brilliant in years gone by, Turkey 21, Abu Dhabi 21. He was God tier at one point. And I don't think, nor do Christian Horner and Helmut Marko think that that's acceptable. Is it acceptable that this fella waits to Hungary for the Tajuvidra family who own 51% of Group Red Bull GmbH? Can be coughing. Can't even take it. Is it acceptable for those guys to turn up, the Red Bull family, the 51% owners? They show up in person to Hungary, travelling all the way from Thailand to see in person what Checo Perez is doing in their car. And what does he do there and then? Stacks it, yeets it into the barrier. Unacceptable. And I can't stop coughing because of it. Look at this. Michael K, what are you saying? I hope you're good. Only good people. Big ups. Juan Real. McLaren F1 race. Oi, oi, cat. I hope you're all right. Look at my foot. I'm struggling. Grab some water, Cameron, before scorched earth Cameron loses his voice. You have to make this a condensed one, clearly. Look, here's what you need to know. The timeline is thus, because there has been a U-turn, right? 180-degree turn by Messrs Horner and Marko. Probably more Horner than Marko. But here's where we've been. July the 19th, FP1, Hungarian Grand Prix. Horner said, I think he's been a bit of a headspin these last few races, but hopefully today there were signs that he's coming out of that he's recovering his form. July 19th to FP2. Helmut Marko is asked to confirm if Perez has performance clauses in his contract. There are various forms of performance clause, says Helmut Marko. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what a contract looks like. You, meaning Checo Perez, just needs to go out there and perform. We'll have a look at the next two races before the summer break. That's July the 19th, Hungarian Grand Prix, FP2. Helmut is asked who is the favourite to replace him potentially among Ricciardo, Tsunoda and Lawson. Helmut Marko, Dr. Helmut Marko of Red Bull GmbH says that's quite a nice question. I'll give it an answer. Everything is on the table. What does that tell you then? It tells me then that they were considering it because my man, Checo Perez, has been rubbish. His performance has been through the floor. July 20th, Hungarian Grand Prix post qualifying. Christian Horner says this about Checo Perez's performance, and this is table setting. We need to consider the full picture holistically in a way that's open and covert. Objective settings. I think I've shown that I'm very patient, said Christian Horner. Here's where it gets techie, right? But this was really the last thing that he and the team needed. Remember, he yeeted it in free practice. We now have to get everything back together, repair the car and see what we can get out of it during the race. When the owners come to the Grand Prix, that's the Grand Prix Checo Perez for the avoidance of that. If you need a cheeky tip going forward, that's the one Grand Prix where you can't put the car in the barriers. This is F1 101. Surely just common sense, but apparently common sense in F1 is not too common. What are we doing? Coughing myself to death, apparently. Look, ask about Checo Perez's future. Horner replies, any discussions, again, July 20th, after the Hungarian Grand Prix, yeet, no less. Asked about Checo Perez's future, Horner replies, any discussions we have with him will, of course, take place internally, not in front of the media. But rest assured, says Christian, and this is where it gets techie, the humanity settings. We cannot run on one leg. No kidding, Sherlock. You are losing the will to live as far as the Constructors' Championship is concerned. Indeed, some F1 fans have come out and already anointed McLaren 2024 Constructors' Champions on the back of the decision that they made yesterday, which of course was to keep Checo Perez. But I digress. July 24th, commenting on the Hungarian Grand Prix, Helmut Marko said it was a typical Grand Prix for Perez, unpredictable. He continues to have this ups and downs. Nobody knows when he will shine or when he will make a mistake. He simply lacks consistently good performance, and I apparently simply lack consistently good voice. What are we doing here? That's said by Helmut Marko via Speed Week, and of course that's where you see the tone start to change towards Checo Perez's performance now. July 26th, Belgian Grand Prix free practice. Christian Horner said this: Checo's future is in his hands. He has to have a good weekend because we need his points for Constructors' Championships, and McLaren has recovered a lot in the last races. That via Formula Passion Italia. July 27th, Belgian Grand Prix pre-qualifying. One Helmut Marko said, Sergio knows that for the Constructors' Championship, we have to have both cars ahead of McLaren if possible. That hasn't been the case in the last few races. No kidding, Sherlock, Dr. Helmut Marko, because you've got one driver in Maximilian Verstappen who's going full send each and every single time. He's scoring the lion's share of the points and has been for as near as makes no difference the past 3 years. You have another driver whose name is Checo Perez, Mexican Minister of Defense, and he's dropping the ball. In his pail, it is full of holes, mistakes, can barely get out of Q1. What's he adding to the piece at this point? Surely, if Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko have their racing caps on, they must know that there is less risk in jettisoning Checo Perez at this point, as at July 2024, than there is from keeping him. However, I digress. When asked for a specific goal for Checo Perez, Helmut Marko at the Belgian Grand Prix refuses point blank. He says, no, the goal is just to win both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. We'll discuss the best way to achieve that on Monday the 29th. That was yesterday. And they made the wrong decision, didn't they? Even, according to F1 Insider, even the Max Verstappen's family was surprised because before leaving the Belgian Grand Prix, both Red Bull team boss Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, advisor of Red Bull GmbH, had told the Verstappen family that Perez is gonzo secco but finished. He's out of there. Max Verstappen will get a new teammate at the first race after the summer break at his home race in Zandvoort. That's what they told Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. That's what they told the Verstappens post the Belgian Grand Prix. You're okay, Max? We're sending in the cavalry. You're going to get help. We know you haven't been getting the help that you so deserve season to date. Checo's been flopping, dropping the ball at every single juncture. No longer, though, Max. This is what Christian Horner said. However, yesterday they made the decision, and it was the wrong decision if indeed front and centre as a first order priority is performance and indeed winning yourself a Constructors' Championship at the balls that are red. But why, I hear you ask? Why did they make that decision? Surely it's got something to do with the $30 million that he brings in every single year per annum. One Checo Perez, man formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense. Nothing to do with the 30 million. Well, then it's got to be on harmony grounds, right? Just don't want to upset the apple cart. Keep Maximilian Verstappen happy. Have another loyalist in the form of Christian Horner as a supporter. Lest we forget that at peak Christian Horner allegation gate, there was one man, one driver of the two who supported his team principle unequivocally. That driver has a name, and his name was Checo Perez. Ultimately, we know that the only reason why Checo Perez got the extension deal in the first place was because of that. However, it wasn't all of the aforementioned. That's not what saved Checo Perez. Here's what saved him, per the F1 Insider. Again, remember their decision. They said that Perez yesterday, remember Helmut Marko flew into London and they had a sit down, all of the key stakeholders, and they decided to keep him through to at least the end of 2025. They said this: Perez is staying. We want to get him back to his old form, said Helmut Marko. Ricciardo's staying too. Nothing for now will change. We'll come back after summer break. Red Bull driver lineup, so too RB Visa cash up, will be as is. Why though? Because cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, yo. That's why. Checo Perez is the Mexican GP salvation, writes F1 Insider. They continue. He did not want to comment, Helmut Marko did not want to comment further on the background. What leaked out behind the scenes, however, is that the F1 rights, the commercial rights holder, Liberty Media, asked the Bulls that are red, aka Red Bull, to reconsider the Checo Perez dismissal. They feared a huge drop in revenue, writes the F1 Insider, at the Mexican Grand Prix on October the 27th of this year without national hero Checo Perez. Oh, the humanity. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, yo. Of course it was. Of course it had to be. Liberty Media feared that they're going to turn up to the Mexican Grand Prix without the hometown hero, without one Checo Perez, meaning that they will sell no tickets. All that Liberty Media care for, they've got the rights. So the money on the Sky Sports money, that's in the bag, right? Those are long-term deals. Whether it's Sky Sports in the UK, The Zone in Spain, ESPN in North America, that's sunk cost now. What Liberty Media are concerned as far as their bottom line is having as many Grand Prix as possible, times as higher live audience revenue as possible. Indeed, for the avoidance of doubt, if Checo Perez doesn't turn up to this year's Mexican Grand Prix as a Red Bull driver, there will be no one there. Live attendance numbers will do one of these. Hence why Red Bull have been asked, advised, implored even to keep themselves, the Mexican Minister of Defense, keep him handy, make the reshuffle at the very least on October the 28th of this year. Not a day before October the 27th when the Mexican Grand Prix is due to be held. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing here? Of course, Cameron. How could I be so stupid? Paying so much attention to performance, to all of these crashes, all of the stakeholder... This matters not. Follow the money and you will find out about root cause analysis. And this, despite my incessant coughing and my voice going, this, of course, is the case in Checo Perez's instance. Oh, the humanity. Checo runs Red Bull, says Visual. You're not a million miles away from the truth. But go on, Checo. He's going to get better on the race thing. It will be unbearable. He better get better indeed. McLaren F1 race J, we're rumour hungry. This is not rumour. I reckon it makes sense though, right? That as we were trying to piece together the dots and try and understand why Checo Perez still has a seat at Red Bull Racing, there was something missing in my epiphany, my trying to be as holistic as far as causality as is possible. There was something that didn't make sense. You heard me come out and announce it's done. It's pretty much done. As near as makes no difference. And it was. They told the Verstappens, come back after the summer break and we will have yourself a driver, a serious one, the likes of which would be Carlos Sainz Jr. Someone like that. Somebody decent that doesn't yeet it each and every single session. But oh no, not so fast. Jomo, you're a legend, Sir Bruce. What does it matter? Didn't he F up the first turn of the first lap last year in Mexico? Money well spent there. Yeah, but ultimately, what it matters, Bruce, is that these guys, if he crashes into turn one, it doesn't matter then because everybody's bought their tickets, right? But if you announce it now, say Red Bull come back after the summer break, or say yesterday, 29th of July, 2024. Let's imagine that Christian Horner puts forth a statement, a press release, saying that Checo Perez has been released from Red Bull. He will no longer be a Red Bull racing driver, nor will he be a Formula One driver. What do you think, Bruce? And far too kind, by the way, sir. What do you think that does to live audiences? Ticket sales at the Mexican Grand Prix. Tanks it. That's what it does. Nobody will go. There is something to be said indeed that F1 doesn't do enough. Doesn't celebrate the hometown driver in his home nation. Now apparently they're doing it vicariously by way of some back alley negotiations with Christian Horner and Red Bull. Please don't sack him, they said. Leave him be until October the 28th, the day after the Mexican Grand Prix. So rest assured, Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko are desperate to get rid of one Checo Perez, the guy they used to call Mexican Minister of Defense. However, they will not get rid of him. There is a test this week on Wednesday, tomorrow, between Liam Lawson, Danny Rick. It's a filming day, they call it, right? But in essence, they will be paying attention to those times, and that will qualify it as an audition for the big role, of course, to supersede one Checo Perez as soon as 2025. Remember, they can't get rid of him before October 27th. That's the date of the Mexican Grand Prix. However, this is in tow. It's a work in progress. They will hit the button, the eject button on Checo Perez as soon as they can. But that won't be a day before October the 27th. How long is that contract with Mexico and Liberty? I have no idea, Patrick. I have no idea. And I don't think it matters, to be honest. The Mexican Grand Prix, I think it's a long-lasting one. Because again, it's an area into which they need to continue expanding, right? All of the Americas, North, Central, South, they need to keep expanding in there. Those are growth territories, are they not? So it'll be a long-termer. That Mexican Grand Prix won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Do you know what I mean? Ron Real says RBR will go for more development time. Yeah, well, maybe. What do you mean, deliberately tank so that they can get more wind tunnel and CFD? I don't think they've got that in them. To be fair, although I was reading Adrian Newey's book today, and he talks a lot about some skullduggery that they pulled off in the early 2010s, deliberately overweighting the car, putting ballasts in there, or however you pronounce it, with a view to avert the gaze of the FIA. And again, if we're talking, surely, I'll end with this. And again, I don't want to do the tinfoil hattery, but with a view to address the rapidity, the extent to which Red Bull, the gap between Red Bull and the rest has diminished in such a short space of time. Is it possible that Red Bull have been sandbagging? With a view, Afka, you're a legend, sir. Is it possible, non-rhetorical question, that Red Bull all this time have been sandbagging? That all of a sudden McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari too, to a certain extent, a lesser extent, have all of a sudden just caught up the balls that are red. Does that even make sense? What, just because Adrian Newey's left the garage, no longer working on it, all of a sudden they've got zero time in hand and are struggling with curbing and the lateral suspension is too stiff? Like, does that even make sense? I don't know the answers. Again, I'm left in a state of curiosity. Again, something that I'm really trying to wrap my head around and understand, just as we were the Checo Perez circumstance and situation. Because again, for the avoidance of doubt, if you weren't listening, the reason why Checo Perez is staying on as a Red Bull Racing driver, at least to the end of 2025, if not just to October the 28th, isn't because of the $30 million he brings in terms of sponsorship. It's not necessarily because of the amount of energy drinks that he sells in Mexico or even Latin America or Central America, North America even. It's not any of those. Nor, of course, is it his performance, because he's been rubbish season to date. His form has been bottom of the barrel settings. None of the aforementioned, nor is it harmony grounds. It's not just because Christian Horner wants him around, nor is it because Maximilian Verstappen wants him around, because Dr. Helmut Marko and Horner had a conversation with the Verstappens around the Belgian Grand Prix, and they'd agreed, they told them that Checo Perez after the summer break was gonzo. They were going to have the catch-up yesterday, 29th of July, Monday, in London, and they were going to decide they were going to jettison him. However, that hasn't happened because Liberty Media have intervened. Their beloved live attendance is being ticket sales at the Mexican Grand Prix, due to be held on October the 27th of this year, would absolutely take a material hit should Checo Perez not be there at all in a Red Bull racing car. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bills. You'll follow the money and you'll understand the root cause analysis. That's why Checo Perez still has himself a seat at Red Bull Racing. Oh, the humanity.